So because we're about to go on a nice sail away from land, and we haven't sailed in quite a while, and it's you guys' first time going offshore, we're gonna go over some safety stuff with you. Some Delos safety stuff. So the first thing that we'll go over would be fire on board. And I would say there's probably more, but the three chances of fire would be electrical, galley, which would be like gas or propane, and in the engine room, so it would be like combustibles, oil, things like that. I'd say the majority of time if a fire is going to occur, it will be in the engine room. So if that does happen, the first thing that we'll do obviously is we'll turn the bow up into the wind, and we'll do that just to keep the smoke going after the boat. So we'll turn the bow up into the wind. The engine room has a self-suppression system in it. It's called halon. So if a fire does happen in the engine room, the sensor will detect it and it goes blow. It's like I think it's carbon dioxide or something. It's halon. So it just starts the fire of oxygen. If the fire is in the engine room, use the pin to lock the engine room off and turn off the fuel to the fire, or to the engine room, which is right here. So behind here, there's a lever. You can feel it. Put your hand in there.
So you pull that one?
You pull that out, and that shuts off fuel to the engine. So, like I said, the halon will go off automatically.
I can move this a bit to the left so we keep that one a bit clear. Because I didn't know that we had some safety
and
stuff
also
there.
here is the engine room lock. So this pin right here goes through this, and it locks the engine down.
So you pull this one first and then you lock it?
Yeah, I guess locking it won't. I mean, it's more locking it if water's in there.
Oh, okay.
But just to know where that is. Yeah, so that's if it's in the engine room. Shut the fuel off, and the halon should do its thing. We'll turn the boat upwind. The fire extinguisher. So there's one up here. Right, these little white ones, and they're all dry chemical. So they're good for liquids and for electrical. Like if you never want to put water on electrical fire because it'll spark up and could cause other fires. The same thing with oil or something like that. If you try and put it out with water, it'll splash up and really burn you. So these are dry chemical that'll come out like a powder. And you just basically, you pull this red pin here and you just push down and you do a slow sweeping motion at the base of the fire. Hopefully that would be enough to put out, like if we had a small electrical fire somewhere, just a quick, I mean this stuff is really nasty, so like just a quick and it should, actually if you're going to use it, just go all out, because you might as well put out, so don't worry about getting the boat messed up. Right here.
Cool.
And there's also another one outside the head in the aft.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go in.
So obviously this is the closest one if anything were to happen in the galley. Come and grab this one. Just pull that off, pull the pin.
Do we have any onboard, no onboard on deck?
No fire extinguishers on deck. If something's really, really bad, we have the anchor washdown.
Yeah.
So we can always get salt water, just pump and blast it, Yep, that's pretty much it. Short and sweet. A fire on board can be a terrible situation, but luckily we have 4 extinguishers on board. And if it gets really bad, there is no lack of water around us to put it out. Next, let's talk about what we would do if Delos were to spring a leak. I can't imagine what it must have been like. You see a squall coming in. First the wind starts to pick up, and then the rain hits you. Before you know it, your anchor drags and you hit a reef. Within a matter of minutes, your dreams are lost. Unfortunately, we see wrecks like this all over the world. Getting a breach in your vessel is a terrible, terrible thing that we hope will never happen to us. Here's a bit of what we covered before leaving Thailand to prepare the crew.
Okay, breach in the vessel. So breach means like a hole, or if we hit something and something collides open or something, if the boat gets punctured in some way, that water's going to start rushing in. So that's kind of what that means. So we have on the boat watertight bulkheads. So that's like these walls pretty much, like this one here for example is a watertight bulkhead. So that means if there's water in there, when we shut that door and turn I'll show you, the lock for that, if that fills up with water, it's not going to come through here. So that's a watertight bulkhead. So we've got 5 of those. One is the anchor locker. So if you guys just come through here. So when we're like, lifting up the anchor back in, all the chain gets fed in through to the anchor locker, and you can access that by in here. So that's a watertight bulkhead. So if that fills up with water, like this is already locked with this thing, but if that fills up, that's going to be fine. So that's
We're not going to sink.
No. So first what you need to do is grab this thing.
Oh, that's what they are for.
Yeah, it's a lock
I've
thing.
seen them, yeah.
So you would only really do this in an emergency if we couldn't stop, like let's say there was a puncture up at the bow or something and we couldn't stop the water flow and we were like, okay, the boat's going to fill it with water. So what you would do first is you would grab this and then you would come out here and then you shut the door and then this gets fed through here and you pretty much just tighten that up all the way, super tight, and then that's gonna be watertight. So if that fills up, we'll still float, kind of thing. There wouldn't be like any pressure in the bow that would pull the boat forward. No, we would still be buoyant enough to float. I mean, the boat might the bow might go a little bit into the water or something, but
it won't fully sink.
No. Okay. So that one lives there for up here, and then there's also another one in the back. So like the door to the aft cabin, it does the exact same thing. This one is kept here.
Yeah.
So the exact same thing for forward. So if this fills up and we can't stop anything, shut the door, tighten that up.
And make sure that no one's in the room as well.
The engine room is also a watertight bulkhead, right?
Mm-hmm. And the dive locker in the back, all the back locker.
Yeah.
Okay, you reached that one from your room?
No, it's
No.
the only access is on deck.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the same like the
But this is the pin that Brady showed you before.
Yeah.
That locks that off, so that's watertight. So if the engine room fills up with water, we just lock that off, and
Okay.
that should be alright.
Mhm.
And the cool thing is, even if the bow fills up or the stern fills up and we close both those doors and they both fill, we'll still float because the salon in this area will keep us afloat. And the same thing if there's a breach or a hole or we're getting flooded from like the midships, we can close both of those off so that those stay buoyant, and that will still keep us afloat.
So even though this fills up with
Even
water.
though this will fill up, we can still close
And if
those
everything fills up with water, we just sort of
off. Let me think.
we just go.
There's one thing that's important though, is the plumbing from forward and aft. They all run into the bilge in the engine room, and then it gets pumped out. So if you do close off those doors, then you also need to close off the plumbing.
Oh yeah, it's the one under the milk. So
Get 5 man.
but yeah,
Shut
that's
everything
a good
up.
point. I should write that in there. So yeah, obviously you will close that off first, and then close off the plumbing, so that would cut that supply off. So if all that fills up, then it's gonna. Yeah,
So we'd lock that off, take all the milk out.
Yeah, and then there's like a obviously like a pipe,
Yeah.
and then there's a handle, and then you just turn it.
Pull it
So
back.
it's perpendicular to the pipe and
Oh.
it's shut. If we do like hit something like a reef, or maybe we sail into like a whale, like a sleeping whale or something, has happened.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the mast falls down and it punctures the boat, or whatever happens. If there's a breach in the vessel, then obviously the first thing to do is to assess it and figure out if we can stop it or not, rather than just, close the watertight bulkheads. So if it is stoppable, we have these corks, which are normally kept in the bilge here, under the stairs.
And they're different sizes.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff, a bunch of different ones. And then, so we could use these and pretty much anything else that you can find that you can jam in there. Towels, sheets, shove a pillow, like, if it's possible, you know?
Yeah.
If it's going to stop it, then do that.
Wood in the back. So one of the things you can do is you can take, like, you know, if we get a hole on the hull, you'd find out where it is, and then we'd take one of those boards we have in the back, we'd just put a rope through it, and then we'd take like a cushion or something, cut a hole, shove it in there, put it in from the outside and just pull it in, or you can wrap a sail around the boat, just anything you can. We have epoxy, we have fiberglass, like, it'd have to be a pretty bad thing for us not to be able to handle it, I think. But we have time is a nice thing. So you just figure it out, and then it's a good boat for being able to like float with damage. So
I guess that kind of touches on demasting, like if we ever were to lose the rig. Like, you guys didn't get enough job. No, I'm kidding. But in the unlikely event that we lost the rig, you know, obviously steer clear, and if we can we'll try and get it onto deck and then lash it down. If we can't do that, then we have bolt cutters in the engine room.
We have massive bolt cutters that are up in the port cabin locker. So the danger is, like, you know, you're in sea like this, and if the rig goes over but stays attached to the boat, then it's like
You can jam, yeah.
and eventually it'll beat a hole in, and then you're sinking.
And it's not going to go over in flat water, you know? So it's generally going to be pretty...
So the first thing would be, like Josh said, to try and get as much salvaged on board, because if we're in the middle of the ocean, there's a chance we might not have enough fuel to motor the whole way. So we'd have to put up some sort of a jerry rig with the boom or part of the mast or whatever. So we'll try and salvage as much as we can. But if it's in danger of sinking the boat, then we'll just take the bolt cutters and chop everything.
Where do we keep those?
They're up by the life raft. I'll show you that.
Okay.
The bilge pumps. So if the boat does start filling up with water, then obviously we have the bilge pump that will pump that water out. But if it's a big hole or leak or something, then it's not going to be able to keep up with that. We also have a manual crash pump that we keep in the port cockpit locker.
And there's a manual pump on the engine room that we'll show you. This right here. So we've got 2 electrics and 2 manuals. So this is the first manual pump. So let's say that we're getting water into the bilge in the engine room and both of the electric pumps aren't working. Then this is a manual pump. So you have this handle here, but it's kind of clever because the table also works. So you can grab this one out. That fits in there, and it just gives you a lot more leverage on it like that, and then you just pump like that. It's a pretty good pump. And this is the same handle I was talking about for the other manual pump,
That's really cool.
which I'll show you. So here's that pump we're talking about. So it's really,
Whoa.
so the handle would go in here. This is the pickup. So you probably, if you know, a lot of water down there, you want to mount this so that this can get in the water. And then this is a pretty long hose that you put either outside the cockpit or over the rail. Stand on it, and then you use the long handle, just, and it works pretty good. The bolt cutters are right down here. They're about this long and have big red handles. You can't really mistake them for anything.
So we were actually quite lucky for Delos to have so many watertight compartments. Like Brian said, it gives us time to find the leak slow it down, stop it, and pump out the water.
Sinking! I will save you!